everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, back again with another news video / rundown of the PWI 500 Top 10, which was published or revealed on the JR podcast today. Now, a quick explanation for those of you who are unfamiliar with the 500. It's released every year and basically is a kind of kayfabe but slightly not kayfabe rundown of the top 500 wrestlers in the world, or male wrestlers I should say. They do a separate women's list, but basically it's a bit kayfabe. It's not like the Wrestling Observer, which is totally, behind the scenes shoot info and all that sort of stuff. It's more kind of as if wrestling was real. This is the top 500 wrestlers, if that makes sense. So I'm going to run down the top 10, which has been made public knowledge, but they don't reveal the rest of it because they want people to buy the magazine, obviously. Before we begin, just a few names that I found a little bit surprising not to make the top 10, I guess, and that includes people like Will Ospreay, who it's no secret that I think has had a phenomenal year, Gargano and Ciampa, who've had wonderful years in NXT, especially, I guess, in kayfabe terms, Ciampa, because he won the title. Aleister Black also won the title. There's guys like Matt Riddle, one of the biggest and most successful names on the independent scene in 2018, until now, of course, when he signed for WWE. But I think in the top 10, by and large, there's kind of a lot to agree with there. I'm going to run it down. It's quite a nice overview, even if you don't think it's kind of got any worth because it's all kayfabe. It's still a nice overview of who's doing what in the wrestling world and who's making the biggest impact. So at number 10, we have The Miz, who was also number 10 on last year's list, which kind of goes to show his real strength, which is consistency. I think The Miz is one of WWE's biggest assets. He is, one of the best heels in the business, utterly fantastic in a despicable way. And I think even though he lost the Intercontinental title quite a while ago now, he still remained at the forefront of WWE, and I think could have a future WWE Championship run. He could be the man, in my opinion, to take that title from AJ Styles. Number 9 is Tetsuya Naito. Now, he's a bit of an oddity in the top 10 in terms of not really holding a top title this year. Yes, you could argue that he held the Intercontinental Championship in New Japan, which is a big title, but it's not a world championship, and he lost it to Chris Jericho, who seems to have taken it away and not done anything with it. He's going to have it on his cruise. He's going to be sat on a sun lounger with the belt around his lovely waist. For those who aren't too familiar with New Japan, Naito is one of the most charismatic and best wrestlers, of course, as well, in New Japan. He might even be the most charismatic guy, I want to say. He's the leader of the LIJ stable. I love him. I think he's fantastic. And he competed in the main event of Wrestle Kingdom this year on January 4th, where he lost, shockingly at the time, to Kazuko Okada. In hindsight, not too shocking because of Okada's historic title reign. But at the time, it seemed like Naito had all the momentum in the world. Momentum that he has sort of lost a little bit in recent months, although he picked up a lot of that again with some very strong performances in the G1 Climax this summer. Number 8, and one of the biggest movers since last year, is Cody Rhodes. We all know him. He was number 33 last year and has jumped right up into the top 10. And it goes to show, I think, that this list is not entirely kayfabe, because if it was entirely kayfabe, I don't think Cody would be anywhere near the top 10, really. He lost the Ring of Honor World Championship. That may have even been at the tail end of 2017 and hasn't picked it up again since. He is competing at All In, of course, for the NWA World Heavyweight, or World's Heavyweight Championship against Nick Aldis. But I think the main reason he's on this list is actually kind of breaking PWI's own rules here. He's actually there because of what he's done outside of the ring. He's manufactured All In. He's the brain behind it, alongside the Young Bucks, of course, and has grown in stature to become one of the most unique wrestlers in the world, I dare say, way more than he was in WWE, and I think one of the best business minds in the wrestling business today as well. Number 7, don't get too angry now, just calm down. Number 7 is Roman Reigns. Roman's down a few places from last year when he was number 4, but you can't argue the fact that he's one of the biggest wrestlers in the world, one of the biggest superstars in the world, of course. He is Mr. Sports Entertainment. He's a huge babyface to, younger fans of WWE, and a huge heel to all of the rest of us as well. He will go down in history as one of the most unique wrestlers ever in terms of crowd reaction, and I think when we analyse over the decades the changing relationship between wrestling and its fans, Roman's going to be one of the most key figures out there, alongside the likes of John Cena, of course, who was the original polarizing main event babyface. But regardless, I think it's worth mentioning that Roman Reigns is often widely overlooked for his in-ring skills. He is a really fantastic wrestler, particularly when it comes to matches with maybe an extreme or a, cage-based gimmick. He knows how to throw himself around, bumps like a champion, and dishes out punishment with the best of them. So, I'm not the biggest fan of Roman Reigns either, but I don't think we can really argue this one, especially because he is now the Universal Champion. Number 6 is the biggest mover on this list, and like Cody, another example, I think, of the fact that maybe this list isn't entirely based on kayfabe achievements, because this man is Braun Strowman. He was 34 last year, I believe, and is the biggest mover in the top 10, jumping right up into number 6, and mainly because he's just caused a lot of destruction and havoc on Monday Monday Night Raw. He is, of course, the current Mr. Money in the Bank, or Monster in the Bank, and could well be the next Universal Champion. He won the Greatest Royal Rumble. I'm listing his achievements and I come out with that one. He won the Greatest Royal Rumble, which, lest we forget, wasn't just that big trophy, but was a belt as well. When will we next see it? Probably at the next Greatest Royal Rumble, the even greater Royal Rumble 2. Strowman Boogaloo. Number 5 is maybe the most over star on Monday Night Raw, not named Ronda Rousey, of course, and has been for the better part of a few years now, whether as a heel or a babyface. It's Seth Rollins. It's actually been quite a long time since Rollins held a top championship. I think the last time he did was when he was the WWE champion before he injured his knee back in 2015. So it's been a few years now, but Rollins has consistently remained at the sort of top or maybe the upper mid card of WWE's roster, regardless of what else has been going on. He can always be relied upon to put on a wonderful match and probably is one of the best in-ring workers in the world right now, even though WWE style often reins him back a little bit. But in matches where Rollins is really allowed to cut loose, like that big gauntlet match we saw on Raw back in like February sort of time, or like in the match recently against Kevin Owens on Monday Night Raw, when he's allowed to cut loose and really show what he can do, you can't argue just how good Seth Rollins is. So I think number 5, if we're taking this in kayfabe terms, maybe a little bit of a high position on the card. Yes, he's held the Intercontinental title a couple of times, but at the same time, he hasn't picked up the huge, accolades like the likes of Roman Reigns, for example, who is below him in the top 10. But still, I think when you look at it from a more shooty point of view, I guess, you can't argue with Rollins' high positioning here. Number 4, a man who you can most certainly argue with the positioning of, Brock Lesnar, somebody who has infamously not wrestled a great deal this year, but in the process transformed himself into like the final big boss, the ultra heel of WWE with that Universal Championship. Alongside Heyman, and perhaps a lot because of Heyman, Lesnar has become maybe the most formidable, intimidating heel in all of wrestling, at least until Roman Reigns beat him recently. But I think it's a bit of a controversial one to put him this high, especially with some of the names we've already mentioned, putting in a lot more work, winning a lot more matches this year. Even though Lesnar was, undefeated for a long, long time and held that belt and held it for months and months and months, longer than CM Punk held the WWE Championship back in sort of 2012, I still get a bit smarky when I see Brock Lesnar this high. I'm still a bit like, oh, does he deserve this? And I can't argue with Brock Lesnar's ability when he wants to put on a good match. He certainly can. We saw it against AJ Styles at Survivor Series. We saw it in matches with the likes of that SummerSlam match against Roman Reigns, even though it only lasted a few minutes. When Lesnar wants to bump and put someone over, he bumps like a champion, and suddenly the other person across the ring from him, regardless of who it is, looks like an utter warrior. Number 3, a man I honestly thought would be number 1 before I looked at the top 10. Number 3 was last year's number 1 as well, Kazuko Okada from New Japan Pro Wrestling. Okada is coming off the back of a legendary, historic, record-breaking IWGP Heavyweight Championship reign, which he lost at Dominion against Kenny Omega. Now, Okada has put on some of the best matches of the year with some of the best wrestlers of the year, and this is going to sound like a deliberate pun. It's not. Pun is not intended, but I think he might be the most elite wrestler in the world. Not the elite, just the most elite wrestler in the world today. If again we're looking at this list in an entirely kayfabe fashion, then I think you could easily make a case that Okada should be number 1 any day of the week. But he did recently lose that title to Kenny Omega and has since undergone something of a weird, fascinating character transformation where he's gone from the ultra cocky, ultra confident Rainmaker figure to this weird, dyed his hair red, started coming out with balloons, this weird kind of semi, not taking it seriously sort of character who is clearly going through some kind of breakdown. So it's a very interesting side of Okada. It just shows his versatility as a performer as well. He doesn't always have to be the big cool guy on top. He can also portray somebody who's going through a bit of a hard time and needs to claw his way back to the top of the mountain. Number 2, and the second year in a row as runner-up for Mr. AJ Styles, the best in-ring performer in WWE without question. I mean, he's the current WWE champion. He's held that title for quite a long time now, longer than JBL did back in the mid-2000s. Many people think, including Adam Pacitti, that he's going to hold that title for longer than CM Punk did. We all know that Brock Lesnar beat Punk's record, but if Styles were to beat the record, I think that would raise a lot less complaints. 1, because it's with the same title that CM Punk held, not with the Universal Championship, and 2, because a lot more people seem to like AJ Styles on the internet than Brock Lesnar, certainly in 2018. I don't really know what to say about AJ Styles because it's all been said before. He's wonderful to watch in the ring. Doesn't seem to be slowing down despite rapidly approaching 40. I think he's still in his late 30s, but it's certainly not the peak of most people's career, but for some reason for AJ Styles, it is the peak of his career. He's been successful in Impact, New Japan and WWE like nobody else, and is just phenomenal to watch. I can't believe I've resorted to using that word. Well done, AJ, for your number 2 slot, but can he make it up to number 1 next year? And number 1, and PWI's Wrestler of the Year, the man at the top of the 500 is Kenny Omega. Now, in my opinion, I agree with this. I think if we're looking at it totally kayfabe again, then Okada should be number 1. But if we're looking at it in this weird blend of kayfabe and realism, then Kenny Omega for me is the best wrestler in the world. He is someone I look forward to more than pretty much anyone else in terms of if a big match is coming up featuring him, I'm like, I've got to check out the Kenny Omega match, because I think he's got a nice combination of wonderful modern day sort of athleticism, but at the same time, this is going to sound silly, it reminds me of Bret Hart a little bit in that when he's up for a suplex or he's about to take a move or something, he struggles and fights and makes it look real. As ridiculous as some of the moves that him and whoever his opponent is are pulling off, he makes it look real, and I think that's a skill that not a lot of wrestlers have, certainly not at the level of expertise that Kenny Omega does. He's the current IWGP Heavyweight Champion as well. I think that could be quite a long reign. I can't see who's going to end it. And yeah, I just think he's wonderful. I think Kenny Omega probably does deserve to top this list. It was between him and Okada for me, but I can totally see why Kenny Omega has secured the number 1 spot. So that's all for this news video / rundown of the PWI 500. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. Thank you very much for watching. Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments section below, because year on year this list always generates a lot of controversy. A lot of people are going, what's the point of it's all kayfabe and stuff? You've kind of got to look at it through a certain filter. But yes, leave your opinions down below and let me know what you think. Thank you for watching. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can at Jack the Jobber. If you want to follow any of us, you can at Cultaholic. And also check out our Patreon if you are so inclined. Patreon.com/Cultaholic. And if you haven't already, don't forget to hit subscribe and to join us.
Hello, I'm Adam Pachisi from Cultaholic.com, and as you may be aware, we beat the WrestleTwats in our SummerSlam predictions contest. As you may also be aware, this means that all 3 members of the WrestleTalk team have to perform a live lip-sync concert at the Wrestling MediaCon in Manchester. I can't wait.
On top of the Cultaholic vs WrestleTalk live show, there's also live wrestling from Impact, Rev Pro, NJPW and Defiant, as well as live panels involving the likes of Dave Meltzer, Colt Cabana, Sean Walton and a whole range of incredible guests.
Tickets are available now from WrestlingMediaCon.com. Ollie Davis, I hate you.